Hi guys, Paul Buchanan Jones with another Mistika Boutique tutorial for you. Today I'm going to show you how to do some advanced patching. There's some things that you need to know actually when it comes to doing patching, because there's a couple of ways to do it, and if you're working in stereo, as far as I'm aware, this is the only way that really works. Firstly, I'm going to take you through this flow so you can see kind of how I'm going about things. Now, this is with a jaunt camera, so we've got 24 individual cameras. I've got my stitch node here. You may notice that I've got a couple of things going on here, so if we come across to the other side, I'll show you what those are doing. So I've got color grades on individual cameras, and the reason for that is that if I turn this one off, you can see here that it was a darker patch. So I'm just using the color grade node to just bring it in line a little bit with the other. Now you can use the match color, which I've done, but there was a lot of difference between this, so I just wanted to try and help the match color feature as much as possible. So the other one that I've got here this is a very light patch. This is from this light here. I had a forward-facing light for an interview that we were going to do, and it was casting a lot of light on the floor and up the sides here. On another stitch that I've got, I actually spin the camera around and put a color grade just to pull this back down again across the whole of the center. But for this one, I've just fixed the floor a little bit. So we've got two individual color grade nodes here and here, just fixing a darker shadow on that one and a lighter shadow on that one. Okay, so coming up then, we've then got our stitch node, usual thing, you know how to do that by now. And you'll see it branches off to the side here. Now this is where I'm doing the patches. This one I've got two paint patches, one of which, let's do this one first. So this one is just pulling out, this is a planar, and what I've done is I've painted out this lion's head thing here. And if we look at this first of all in stereo, you can see that there is some parallax there. We've got parallax disparity. Now, what I've done is I've added in a scope node. So this splits left and right. The scope node here is actually just a placeholder in case I needed to do anything with it. On this one, though, this scope node is holding the shape for the mask. And then I'm doing a Gaussian blur because it was in the shade a bit, so it was a little bit grainy. Then I do my vector paint, and then I just do a median to blur everything out. So if we come over, I'll just bring up the scope on this side. So we can see here's the shape node here with its alpha channel. And then, where are we? Down here. So we've got the scope node, which is holding the shape. The Gaussian blur, which is just blending some of these rougher pixels together. Paint it all out. There was a little bit of, you could see, you may not be able to see this, but I can see some, very faint sort of like some paint marks in there. So then I just added a median to just blend those back together a little bit better. Now remember, this is all still happening within the, so if I do that, it's all happening within this shape. So I'm not everything outside of this shape is as it should be. So if we go back to the RGB, although this over here, as you can see, is blurry because of the blurs that I've been doing, everything's actually retained within this shape, so that then when I comp it back over, you can see that this is all sharp, but it's only the area within this patch that has been blurred and blended. Okay, so that was the first one. So coming back over to this side, that then was all of that stuff there. Okay? Now I've got another patch that's going on here. And this patch, if I just come down to the VR view, this is my nadir, and I'm painting out the tripod. So from here down, that's my VR view. I've then got the vector paint, and we'll come over, actually, I'll look at this down, go up through this on this side. So I find it actually easier to view all this stuff in the node graph than I do in the eval tree here. So where are we then? We've got that's our VR view. There's the paint. And what I'm then doing is adding in a patch. This is my patch. I'm adding in a framing node and setting this to project so that it gives me the 2:1, basically just to make it square. If I set that to input, you can see that it's all being stretched. So by setting that to project, I can then just scale it on here and set the patch to the size that I want it to be. Now, I'm then using a color grade just because I want to darken it down, because when I comp it over the top, the color grade allows me to just boost the blacks a little bit. If I turn that one off, you'll see the difference. Yeah, so it's a little bit brighter. You might like that. That's your choice, however you want to do it. But by adding in the color grade node, it gives you the option to control, you know, the final look and output. Now, the other thing that you'll need to know here is that on the Comp 3D, what I've done is I've set the attributes blend to soft light. So if I set that to normal, it'll come in like that. I wanted to just blend it over, so I've used a soft light. So that's pretty much that. That's a fairly straightforward one. The only other thing actually on here is just the rotation, which I've used on the rotation Z here. So that's all fairly straightforward. Coming back to this side then, so there we can see it again. There's our VR view, there's our vector paint. There's my logo into the framing node, into the color grade, and then comped together with the logo set as input 2, so it's the one over the top. Now, what I've then done is passed both of these through to more VR views, and these ones are set to, it says planar. Basically, I've got a solid mapped into the background here. And these then are comped, maybe they are planar, these are then comped together here and laid back in over a final Comp 3D. I've done this so that basically I can pull these out and change them around if I want. So if I want to change the patches, swap out the logo, do anything else with it, they're all on a completely separate branch, which gives me then the ability, rather than putting it in the main branch, I can just disconnect both of these, so I can pull that one off, and the main flow will just go straight up. So it also means that I can add more into this side branch if I wanted to, which is what I'm going to do. So what I want to show you is, what if I wanted to put this logo on the wall here? Now, at the moment, you'll see that it's in stereo. So we've got a shift going on there. If I put the logo on the wall, it needs to do the same thing. So let's have a look at how we can do that. So what I'm going to do then is add in a new, as you might tell, I'm full of the cold at the moment, so bear with me. So I'm going to add in a new VR view here. And this VR view I'm going to make lat long. And I'm going to show you basically how, it's sort of like one of the ways of doing this. Bear with me, and things will be explained. So what I want to do from here then is I want to add in a new framing node here, and I'm just going to use Alt to pull this off. I could just copy and paste this, but you know, this is the whole point of node editing, isn't it? So I've now got a new framing node. I'm going to set that to project so we make it square. I'm going to scale this thing down a bit as well. And what I want to do on this then is add in a new color grade. So if I want to fix it, it's there. And from here, I can feed that one into, as a second input, onto this VR view. Come to this VR view and set it to reverse. And if we double click on that one, we should now be able to adjust the yaw, the pitch, and all that normal stuff. Okay, great. I'll come back to my framing node, and I'm just going to scale this down. Let's just take this down to, say, 400. All right, still not big enough. Okay, let's make it, come on, 200. That'll do. Okay, so with that one selected there. I want to go to this VR view. I think it's this one. No, I'll have to do it over here. So this VR view here. Right, so now I can adjust the yaw and the pitch. Yeah, that puts me into place. So if I take off stereo a moment, so that puts that into place there. And if I use the VR mode, we can spin around and yeah, that's fine. That's all as it is. But there's a problem here. And the problem is this. If I go into stereo mode and I switch between left and right views, you can see that there is no stereo on this logo. It's just kind of floating in space. It doesn't really feel, no matter what I do with color corrections, this thing is just going to feel floating in space, and that's not what I want. I want it to actually feature a proper stereo view. So we'll come out of VR mode, and what I'm going to do is disconnect this, and this VR view is not the way. That's great if that way works really well if you're working in mono, but it's not going to work for stereo. So if you're working in stereo, what you're going to need to do is, first of all, I'm going to need to, I'm going to sort of like pick a new branch. It might be easier actually. You know what? It might be easier if I do just copy this, just so that you guys can follow it along. I don't want you getting too confused here. So if I just copy this and paste that back in. Right, so this is a new one. You can, of course, like I say, just pull that off as many times as you want. It's the same thing, but I'm just going to do it this way so it's easier for you to sort of like keep everything in a single location. Right, so that's our logo then. Good. What we want to do is stick it on the wall. So from this VR view, I'm going to pull this off to the one side, and I'm going to break it out of there for the moment. Now, I tend to pull things off to one side so that I know that this is the input, if you like. So double-clicking on there, I'm going to just click on there, hit delete to reset that, and I'm going to spin the yaw around to that same patch of wall. I'm going to push the pitch so I can see the ceiling, and I'm doing that so that I can try and get things square. I just want something that I can more or less line up to be square with. Okay, so that's all right then. So that's good there. So I've got my logo here. So we could do then just the same as what we've done here. Yeah, and put a comp 3D in it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're just going to add a comp 3D here, and we're going to pipe this one in on input 2, just as we did before. So if we now open this one up, well, we can see that the comp 3D has thrown it into the background, so we'll need to make that a little bit bigger in the framing node. 400 then, yeah. That's the size that we want. Double click back on our comp 3D. Now, what we can do with the comp 3D is if I click on the orbit tool here, so actually click on camera, click on orbit, I can then spin the whole thing sideways. Yeah, now this is only the camera view. We'll want to set all this back to 0. Now, if I, let me just do that actually. If I, again, switch between left and right eye views, you can see here that, again, the thing's floating in space. Now, don't worry about the poor stitching oddness. It's fine. This thing's floating in space. It's not attached. Here's the interesting thing. If we come down to layer 2 and set the Z position forward a little bit, not the rotation, bring the Z position forward. So you can see if I push it back, it disappears through layer 1. So if I pull it forward a bit, okay, come to camera, hit the orbit tool again, and rotate, we can now see that it's lifted off the wall. That's exactly what you need to do. Followed by, once you've lifted it off the wall, go to the camera and ramp up your interocular. So what I'm going to do now is switch this to black and white anaglyph, And as I pull it up, you can see that I'm now getting the left and right split. And all I want to do, so you obviously don't want this up too high, but I'm just going to pull this up a bit. And if we now do the, yeah, so now you can see that we're getting a left and right split, which is exactly what we want. So we can then use our color grade node. Actually, before I do that, you would think, yes, do use the color grade node. So if I, for instance, push some orange, yellow into here, yeah, that's changing those colors. That isn't exactly what I wanted. So I could, you know, pull the gamma down. So the advantage of the Comp 3D then is that we can come to the light and we show the lights here, yeah, and we can do the color control. Now, the thing is here, if I change the light on this one, you can see that it's going to affect the overall comp. So that's not what we want to do. What we want to do for this one is come up to the color control here for the patch itself. And what I'm going to do is after the framing node, but before the color grade node, I'm going to add in a new Comp 3D. And that's not where it wants to go. So click on the framing node, hit Comp 3D, and that puts one in there. Now I'm not actually going to do any compositing or moving the thing with this. But what I do want to do is come down and to the light and set the light type to spot. And I can now, if I double click on this one, single click on that one. So this sets the context for this light, but I can see how it's looking against the background. And I can then just come in and tweak till I get a slightly orangier looking. Anyway, you get the idea. So the idea being to tweak the colors on this Comp 3D here before passing it into the color grade. And then on this color grade, I can, you know, tweak things a little bit more. And maybe push some orange into there, kind of like that. And then when we come up to the final comp, it's kind of in the scene. Now, the other thing that you can do here actually with this is if we go back to color grade, framing, VR view. Oh, I can't tell on this thing. So this one, I'm going to just do it here. So on this one, the other thing that we can do is, sorry guys, I have to jump backwards and forwards so much, but there's no other way really of doing this. What I want to do then is to grab the light and move it. Yeah, so you can see here the light is moving around. I don't know which light I've got. I'm on the wrong one. So this one, right, double click the Comp 3D, single click the one that you want to manipulate, select the light, and you can now drag the light around and position it as you want. So as you can see, we can now control the lighting. So if I wanted it I want it actually looking like it's coming up off of this candle a little bit. We can also rotate it. Yeah, kind of like that. So now we come back to our Comp 3D, and there it is on the wall. All right, groovy. It probably could tweak the lighting, fix that, you know, but that gives you the idea. Now, there's something else that you can do with this. So I'm going to show you the same thing, but slightly different. And the reason for that is, before we do that, actually, I want to just take a copy of that. So I'm going to stick this all back together. So this is sort of like in a single flow up rather than pulling it out across the arm. Set that one to reverse of previous and pump that one back into there. That then comps that across the top of our original background plate, and we can switch between left and right views, and as you can see, it's now has left and right views. Good. So what I want to do now, actually, let me just come back over to here, is to do the same thing, but stick it on this wall here. And the reason I want to show you this is because this is in a different position and it's at a different angle. So merely sticking, you know, if you were using the sphere method, that won't work as effectively. Even in mono, that won't work as effectively. So let me show you what I mean. So on my VR view here then, I'm just going to add in a connect node so that I can separate these out, and onto there, add in a VR view, pull that over to the side, spin it on the yaw and the pitch, and we just want to try and get a level top. So you can see that actually we're looking up, aren't we? If we've got a pitch of 10 degrees on this, then we're obviously looking straight up. Now, the other thing to think about actually is that this would be straight up, and yeah, this is the center. So anything that's placed here is going to need to be rotated on Y and on X so that it points in the right direction to match the perspective. So with that then, we want in here a framing node to hold our logo or decal, whatever it is that you want to put on the wall. We're going to come to project size for that. Let's double click on that and just scale this down to say 400. Onto here, I'm going to add in a comp 3D so that I can do my lighting and a color grade because it may well need it. And onto my VR view then, I want to add in a comp 3D because the VR view always has to be the background plate, and then we simply pump the this one in. Now, once you've got that, we want to double click on that one. We come over to here and we can see now the decal more or less well, it's in the center, which is where we would expect it to be. So we need to transfer it and push it up here, and we do that on this. Let me just come over to the flow. Any changes to position, probably easiest done on this comp 3D rather than this one. You can use either, but I just tend to do it this way so I know that all my movements and transforms are done here, and this one I just use for lighting. So saying that then, coming back over to here on layer 2, going to move it over on X, push it up on Y, and then, as I said, what we're going to need to do is to rotate it on Y. Now, you'll see that it's flipping through the background, so we need to bring it forward on the Z, rotate on Y. Let's have a look at the axis on this thing. And we'll just come in a bit. So what I want to do now is rotate it on X. So you can see I'm just looking at the blue axis part here, so you can see that I just want to try and match a roughly similar perspective to where something would be. That's more or less it. Now, the other thing that we'll need to do is come to the camera and set the interocular. If I come to black and white anaglyph mode, we'll just keep cranking this up until I get some shift. And then we can just split between left and right views, and that's where it needs to be. So I'll just come back to this. This is the single comp 3D, if we like. So there's only one layer. This one is really just for me to adjust the lighting. So we'll come to here, pull this down a little bit, Actually, I'm going to change this to spot. And we'll just play around with this till you get the color. You can, if you click on that one, go to set color, and pick a color will also work. But I find that sometimes, I mean, that can get you close, but sometimes it's just a bit dim. So, but it can get you somewhere to start with, can't it? There we go. So that's better. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. So we'll just come to the color correct, and I'm just going to tweak some of the values a little bit here. Things getting laggy again. The other thing actually that I want to do, thinking about it, is to move this 3D light. So with that one selected, we got free transform. So I'm just going to click on the light, kind of move it. Oh. Now, bear in mind that the light can only see the decal. So if I move it too far away, it won't see it. But what I could do is increase the intensity of the light a bit. Something like that. And I think we probably want to rotate it around a little bit as well. Maybe something like that. Get out of it. It's a bit... Now, maybe just because my computer's not the most powerful thing in the world. Target Y, let's pull that to a different direction. That'll do it. Okay, so you get the idea. Right, so then we just simply pull out that one, pull out that one, set this one to be reverse of the previous, and pump that back in, and then shove the whole lot into the LUT 3D, which then goes through its final pass color grade. So when we come to the final output, we should have, come on, there we go. So we've now got our decal on the floor. We've got one on the wall here, one on the wall here, and they all, apart from the one on the floor, which will be mono, of course, because I don't really see much stereo at the poles, but we've got stereo on pretty much everything. Now, we could, if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to throw a shadow in behind this. We would do that on this first Comp 3D node. That's the advantage of this. If you try and do a shadow on this one, it won't work. So coming to here, in fact, let's go to here so we can see it, but click on the first node so it's selected. We can come to the shadow and increase the intensity. And we'll do that offset to 1, so it sort of like looks like it's coming up from there. And offset X, actually we'll do that one as 2. Okay, and we'll just blur that a bit. Whoa. Maybe push the intensity up so we can see it a little bit. That's too much. And actually, I think I'll take that one by one. There we go. So that just throws a little bit of a shadow up around there. Which, if we come to our final look, come on. There we go. as you can see, we've got little shadow on the wall here then. We've got a bit of a reddish glow coming off from this candle. This one, yes, the light needs tweaking to probably to be over here actually somewhere. But there you go, that's it. That's how you basically create decals for walls, wherever you need them to be, in stereo and mono. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you later.